Markets are slowing down right now. Chip stocks are selling off. Can Wednesday's earnings help bring the market back up, or will it drag it down some more? We also have Jerome coming out 1 hour before market opens, and that could move the market as well, up or down, depending on his tone and depending on how other people feel about future rate cuts. We have a lot to cover today. You guys don't want to miss out on this video. Let's get started. With that being said, man, we've seen Apple up 0.62%. Broadcom, Google, and some other stocks. But with that being said, man, we see a lot of chip stocks currently selling off right now, and it's not really looking too good for chips. If we look at NVIDIA in a broader chart, we do kind of see NVIDIA kind of just shaking around, being just in a certain range, and we broke to the downside. Other than breaking to the upside, we broke to the downside. I'm looking pretty bearish overall for NVIDIA. And honestly, man, I'm watching that 168.5 to that 167.5, then below that. When we look at that 165 level for NVIDIA overall, unless we can get a shift back to the upside, we are looking pretty bearish right now. We also seen Verizon beat expectations only by 2% though on both ends. But with that being said, it did bring Verizon up. We also seen T-Mobile come up because of this and other stocks related. We're also seeing a potential change for the pattern day trading, changing it to $2,000 instead of the $25,000 that's been out for a couple of years, honestly. And with this change, it could bring more money into the markets overall and more trades. So keep your eye on this because this can change for a lot of traders out there, especially the people that's risking the 10% of their 10%. We also see that Walmart has increased prices up to 51% in response to Trump's tariffs. And honestly, man, this is honestly insane right now. And we could probably see it go up even more. We have been seeing a constant trend with coffee and also beef prices going up. So honestly, man, I'm not surprised. But a 12-piece pots and pans, $149 now. That's insane. First link in the description below, I have a bunch of courses to help you guys become more profitable. I have a long-term that gives you guys 40 free stocks to outperform the S&P 500, especially in this time. And I also have, how to read charts, basic beginner things for trading overall, and how to make money off of $0 on your computer. So go check out these courses with that code down below. You guys can get 50% off, and the courses are already relatively cheap. I can promise you, you'll make your money back within the first day of using all the knowledge that you guys learned, and has step-to-step guides too. So honestly, relatively easy to use. So for a lot of stocks, we did see a big upside move, especially with Apple. Apple is one that I was paying attention to yesterday, breaking past that 215 level, and honestly going back down, retesting it, and then finally failing the test, and then going all the way down, back down to some ranges of like that 212 level. Still doing pretty good from, Friday's close. But with that all being said, man, I'm going to be watching Apple to the upside momentarily and see if we could test that 215 once again. But if we can't, I'm going to look at it maybe going back down to the downside a little bit more, maybe consolidating around that 211 level. With that all being said, man, we did have banks coming out saying that Apple's earnings will look better, bringing the stock up yesterday. But honestly, saying that, they are still behind on AI and stuff like that, but saying that they might still beat the earnings despite all of this drama that's going on overall. So maybe this can bring Apple stock up when the earnings does come out, and maybe there might be some hype behind it. So we might see it maybe break that 215 and maybe get a little bit higher today. But with that being said, man, have your eyes on Apple overall because we might be falling as well. But we are looking pretty good right now. Maybe another push, maybe to that 214 level at least. And maybe a fail break. But honestly, man, I'm keeping my eyes on Apple. We did also see some new highs, but honestly, gave it all back the last 2 hours. That's when a lot of people started selling off. But Monday was an insane day. Market technically made new all-time highs. But in the stock market calendar, we do got Jerome coming out 1 hour before market opens. It's probably going to be a market mover, potentially, and or it might just be a dud. So keep this on your mind right before market opens, because this might be able to change your trade if you guys are negative right now, and or if you guys are positive, it might change it to negative. So be cautious with that one. And tomorrow we got existing home sales. So some more with earnings, man. We do got Coca-Cola before the market opens. That might be a decent market mover for Coca-Cola, maybe even Pepsi. You never know. Lockheed Martin as well, if you guys are into those type of stocks. RTX. And honestly, that's about it for tomorrow. But Wednesday is the big day. We got Tesla and Google. People are pretty bearish on Tesla, honestly, saying that they're not going to beat expectations. And people are more bullish on Google, saying that they'll beat expectations. And there's going to be some good numbers coming out. We also have IBM, Chipotle, two stocks. I mean, I think Chipotle used to have the hype, but it's not really as hype as it was before. But IBM, I'm interested into IBM because of their quantum computer. And then T-Mobile as well, just because Verizon did pretty good and you've seen their stock go up. So you might see the same thing with T-Mobile. I'm personally a T-Mobile customer. So honestly, man, it really just depends. So we are going streaking. We are in the second longest uptrend over the past 26 years. NASDAQ has closed 60 days straight in above the 20-day moving average, longest streak since 1999, right before the dot-com bubble, which is honestly insane. So be cautious. The streak has been insane, and it's been going on since April 23rd. Coming off all from the tariff issues we ran into starting in April. Last time the streak ended, when there was a 77-day streak, we seen NASDAQ go downward for a few weeks. So you can see a lot of selling pressure when the streak does end, potentially with history. As we can see, we normally see a pullback after the markets has been positive for a long time above their 20-day moving average. It kind of gets a little bearish, but take history with a grain of salt. We are low-key making history and can shift based on how history goes. But for the overall stock market, we're going to be looking at SPX. I'm going to be looking at it moving a little bit more bearish. If we fall below that 6,100, it will be well below that moving average we were talking about before. And also, honestly, this was just a good level in the past, basically, that it was holding up above. So I'm going to be looking at that 6,100. If you fall below that, we might be looking like we get some selling pressure in, maybe fall down to 5,800 and maybe even 56 to that 5,400. So keep 6,100 on your mind and on your radar, but we're still looking pretty good overall. But if we get to like a zoomed in chart, you know, the SPY isn't really looking too good. It's looking a little bit more bearish as well, but you never know. We could still break some levels, maybe retest that 629.5 to that 630 and maybe make some new highs today and or the end of the week. So just keep that in mind overall. Be cautious, be patient, and be willing to adjust your trade as you go on. But as we get into summer, do expect slower market movements. Just like we seen low key, it kind of like bounced up after the market opened and then just kind of just moved very, very slow. And then we finally had a big sell off towards the end of the day, losing all of the gains overall. But with that being said, we're looking pretty choppy overall with the stock market, although we did have a move upside towards the beginning of the day on Monday, but the pullback towards the end of the day did not really look too good. Also, chips kind of lagged today, as I said before, with NVIDIA, AMD, stuff like that. As a short-term trader, you have to be willing to adjust. Like I said before, also be prepared if the market does shift and start heading to the downside. And honestly, right now, we're not really looking too good. It just depends on how today. I think today is going to be like the determining factor of where we're going for the rest of the week until Wednesday. But I mean, that's tomorrow literally. But yeah, man, I'm honestly being a little bit more cautious. And honestly, today and tomorrow is going to be two big days because today can really determine how the market is going to move. And then tomorrow is going to determine how earnings is looking for the bigger stocks for the SPY overall. We also seen Ethereum kind of make a little bit of a slowdown and a little bit of a pullback, maybe people taking profit. So even Ethereum is slowing down. You know, you got Bitcoin just stuck in this range for the past couple of days. And then we got XRP also moving kind of like Ethereum and making a little bit of a slowdown, but it doesn't look as bad as Ethereum because we're still above some key levels. I'm going to be watching that 3.36. And if we fall below that, we're going to be looking a little bit more bearish overall for XRP and even Ethereum. We seen yesterday, a lot of money has been put into gold and silver, showing more money is flowing into the safety stocks as well. And that doesn't really look too good for the overall stock market. But with that being said, man, this can always shift. You can see it make a big sell-off and then tech come back. So honestly, man, like I said, man, today and tomorrow is going to be a determining factor. But the stock market just hit record highs yesterday. But with S&P 500 crossing that 6,300 and the NASDAQ also setting a fresh record. Optimism is running high as investors look ahead to major earnings from tech giants like Alphabet and Tesla this week. Positive signals from the US and EU trade talks and strong results from companies like Verizon are also boosting the confidence. Meanwhile, the Fed is still on everyone's radar, with markets watching closely for hints about a potential rate cut in September. Bottom line, markets are soaring, but with tech earnings and Jerome speaking this week, things could shift fast depending on what we hear. With that all being said, man, we did indeed break a record high yesterday as well. So that can't really be too negative for the market. We didn't have too big of a pullback either. It just honestly just a little bit of a fresh record high and then just a little bit of a sell-off after that. Maybe people just taking profits. So don't be too cautious right now. But you know, maybe if this selling continues, we might have like a tiny pullback. We also have Solana is on rise after the DeFi focused company nearly hit 1 million Solana tokens on its balance sheet. They recently bought over 19 million worth of Solana, bringing total holdings up to around $181 million worth, and most of it's staked to earn passive rewards with it. The company is positioning itself as a MicroStrategy of Solana, making a bold long-term bet on the ecosystem. This move, along with rising institutional interest and staking activity, helped push Solana's market cap back above $100 billion. Bottom line, this kind of big accumulation shows serious confidence in Solana and adds momentum to its rally overall. We also seen Opendoor spike again, a meme stock. We talked about it in last video, the video before that, but this one is going crazy. Opendoor stock spiked over 100% intraday and closed up 42% after heavy retail trading and a short squeeze. Hype from Reddit, Stockwits, and bullish call from activist investor Eric Jackson pushed the stock up higher. Trading was briefly halted also for like 10 minutes or something like that. But this is another meme stock surge, big hype, big risk. Without solid earnings in August, the rally might not last too long. But normally, man, a few days after a meme stock rally, man, I don't even want to trade this one. But this is just one that I got to show up because everybody else is talking about it. And you still have potential for it to move to the upside as well. So keep that in mind. But with that being said, man, just have your patience with this one. Don't get FOMO, because if you get FOMO, you might get left behind and lose some money. So, but this is one that has been moving a decent amount, moving 100%, getting halted. This stock is moving pretty well. And it does have option plays as well. And it has a lot of hype behind it. So the supply and demand is still pretty high. We also seen Michael Saylor, MSTR, now owns around 607,770 Bitcoin, about 3% of all Bitcoin in circulation. They recently bought over 6,000 more BTC, spending around $740 million. Sayer's strategy is to raise money through debt and liquidity to keep buying Bitcoin, turning the company into a high risk, high reward Bitcoin holding firm. If you guys don't know, at MSTR, they moved up a decent amount. Not even gonna lie, I won't even be able to tell you what the company does without buying the Bitcoin, but their stock rose because of Bitcoin. Legitimately, like it's literally their Bitcoin holdings. They were trading at around that $31, spiked up a little bit. And then from that, 130 level, we started spiking all the way up to that 500 within like a couple of days. And they got a lot of hype. And now it's just been moving with Bitcoin overall ever since they like started making those investments and honestly showing their sheets. So this is one company that honestly, high risk, high reward bet, but it honestly benefited them the most. And yeah, like this is one that they're just loading up every single week. And another one is IBIT, and I think they have a bigger holding than MSTR, but it's just an ETF that moves with Bitcoin, and they basically just buy based on what people buy, I guess. But yeah, this is another big one too. This one that I personally trade because the options are relatively cheap, and it's still a cheap ETF, and honestly, you can make a decent amount of money off this one. But I mentioned Hood in yesterday's video. Robinhood exploded, and it's been moving pretty good recently. We had been seeing some selling pressure, and it's kind of overextended at the same time. So you might be able to see Robinhood to the downside. I'm gonna see how it reacts at 100. If we bounce below that 100, might get 98 to that 96. So I'm watching Robinhood to the downside for now, but we might get a little bounce off that 100, maybe come back up, retest like 108 to that 110, and then maybe just like coming into a range, and or we might break up and make some new highs. But right now I'm looking at Robinhood to the downside. And honestly, man, it is kind of overextended, but they do got some new things coming out, but we do got a bit of selling pressure coming in. Boeing is also in this weird range right now. We can either make a break up above that 232.5 or break down below that 227.5. So just watch it. If we do break above that level, you might see it a little bit bullish. And if we break below that level, the 227.5, we might see it a little bit more bearish and start selling off a little bit more. We've been seeing a lot of sales and stuff like that with Boeing, and Boeing's been moving pretty good. Honestly, man, I remember seeing this thing at like 210, 200, and now we're all the way up to that 230 level. We did make a big break to the upside. A lot of people made a lot of money off this one. And honestly, we can either make another break to the upside and or start selling off, and you can make money both ways. So have this one on your radar overall. Next one is going to be AMD. AMD did move pretty strong, but honestly, chip stocks overall aren't really looking too good after we see the sell off, especially after our pre-market, and Nvidia and stuff like that selling off too. So I am personally looking at this one to the downside. I'm going to look at that 153.5, that 152, and that 150 level to the downside. But if we do start bouncing up, I'm going to be looking at that 156.5, 158, and that 160 level to the upside. The SPY overall, man, we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but to the upside, I'm going to be looking at that 630. If we can break above that 630, be looking at that 631.5, that 633, and that 635 level. To the downside, I'm going to be looking at that 627, 626, 625, and that 620 level. I think what's really going to move SPY is, AMD, Nvidia moving downwards, so it might make it move downwards even more. But if we do get a little itch up higher with Nvidia and AMD, we might see SPY start moving up even more, especially if Apple gets some good movement to the upside. But next, let's talk about Nvidia, because Nvidia isn't really looking too good either. With that being said, I'm going to be looking at that 169 if we break below that. 168.5, 167.5, and that 165 level. Back to the upside, I'm going to be looking at that 170. You can break back above that 171.5, 172.5, 173.5, and then finally break past that 174.5 level to that 175 to make it look a little bit more bullish, make some new highs, and then maybe even go up even more. But have your patience with the video overall. Apple, man, I'm very, very pumped to see how Apple moves today. Just watch that 213.5 to that 214. If you can break above that, look at that 215 to that 216 level, and then past that 216.5 to that 220 level. Apple is still like basically still down. I think it's still down like 16% from that dip in April. So honestly, man, we do got some movement to the upside, but people are really waiting on that AI to come out for Apple overall. Next is going to be Palantir. Honestly, they might move with the chip stocks a little bit, but we did get a defense spending like up basically, meaning more money is going to go into Palantir, and that's what kind of brought it up. But now we're kind of selling off as well. So to the downside, I am going to be looking at that 148.5, 147, and that 145 level. To the upside, I'm going to be seeing if we can break above that 150 once again. If we can, 151.5, 153.5, and that 155 level. Honestly, man, this market overall can really, really shift. We can either just start having a little bit more selling pressure come in and just a lot of people start taking profits and stuff like that. And or one day can really shift it. We can see all stocks green again. And really, it's just 50-50. That's why I'm saying just have your patience today trading, man. Don't get FOMO. And honestly, man, dip buys might not be in the play right now. That being said, next is going to be Tesla. We did indeed start breaking up for a while, but we kind of stopped that trend yesterday as well. So to the downside, look at that 324, 320, 315, and that 310 level. To the upside, look at that 330, 335, and that 340 level next for Tesla overall. Just have your patience, please. And honestly, man, please don't FOMO anything. If you guys are getting into Google, understand that the premiums are going to be kind of shot, but honestly, people are pretty bullish on this one, especially with the earnings coming out tomorrow, literally. But this one is one that really moved up pretty strong yesterday, even though the market sold off. So to the upside, we did break that 190 that we were talking about, which is crazy. So I'm going to be looking at that 195 to that 200 level before earnings, and then earnings going to come out and see what happens. But honestly, man, I'm not going to be playing earnings, but I might play Google after the earnings. With that all being said, man, please just have your patience trading today. Don't get FOMO, anything like that, man. I think it's just patience and be willing to adjust to where the market goes. Smash the like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.